Buddy. Buddy, come here. Sit. Oh, what a good boy. Okay, if you hear dog noises, I refuse to make them move. I had a particular problem with the last series of Stranger Things, but I wouldn't add it to my complaints about the finale type of video, because I don't think it's necessarily a problem with the last series of Stranger Things so much as it was a problem with Stranger Things on the whole. It became more apparent in season 4 and 5, but mostly because they were running out of time, and by then you knew that there wasn't going to be more time left. Whereas in seasons 1 through 3, you didn't know how many seasons there were going to be, and it felt like there was all the time in the world for them to fix problems. The problem I'm talking about is the characterization of 11, specifically as a coming-of-age arc. Stranger Things was always imagined as a coming-of-age story, and I think that's true for almost all the characters, barring characters that are adults like Joyce and Hopper and maybe Murray, Murray's sort of comic relief anyway. Even characters that are teens have really good coming-of-age arcs, like Steve, I think in particular, has the really, really good one, that came about mostly on accident, where he was the stuck-up prom king type character who had to realise that high school and the problems of high school aren't that big of a deal, and also to become kind of a leader but also kind of a follower, and to prioritise his relationships with people he wouldn't normally have friendships with. Sorry, she's licking her butt beside me. But you can't see that, so it must sound strange. Frankie! Hey, stop that. Oh, cutie. Hello. 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 Oh, you're so cute. Anyway, whilst I think that most of the characters in Stranger Things have really good coming-of-age arcs, I think 11 is the one that really gets the short shrift. In part because they spent a lot of time giving her arcs that were to do with 11 learning how to be a person. She's now rubbing her face along the sofa and snorting all the while. They gave 11 so many arcs that were about 11 learning to be a person that past a certain point they kind of forgot to make her a person at all. And so, especially in season 5, she feels kind of weird and blank slate-ish. And I don't think that the Duffers' assertion that 11 represented childhood really fixes that. Because in a way, yes, she did, but in a way, so did a lot of other things in the show. And they could have given her more to work with. Hey, buddy. You good? Anyhow, when we first meet 11, she has a full buzz cut and she's wearing a hospital gown. It's about as personality-less as you can get. And that's on purpose. She's come from an abusive environment where they call her by a number instead of a name. And the idea is that Brenna specifically has made sure that the kids in the lab don't have any identity. 11, we see there's a really good arc with her clothing that sort of gets lost, I think, around season 4, wherein she wears Mike's clothing and then some offhand, hand-me-downs of Nancy's, and then clothes that were clearly given to her by Hopper, clothes that were given to her by Carly, and then in season 3 she goes shopping with Max and gets her a full wardrobe. But annoyingly, in season 4 she has that one dress that's clearly come from the shopping trip with Max, but all of her other clothes are hand-me-downs from Jonathan or Will or Joyce, and they look a little bit off, and nothing really marries up anymore. There's no identity left. Similarly, in season 5, she only has 2 outfits, and dare I say it, they are both bad. The first one I could kind of get on board with when I thought there would be other outfits, because I enjoyed the Goonies reference, because I love the Goonies more than life itself. But after that, it became kind of boring. It was like, she doesn't have a personality, she's just wearing a wetsuit. Admittedly, I think that the clothes in season 5 I have less to talk about in that series than any other series, because I think they just weren't taking any big swings anymore. Which was sort of annoying because, sorry, one of the dogs is sniffing the tripod and that's very stressful to me. Could you stop? In season 4, they had some really cool outfits. Like, I loved Nancy's Brooke Shields inspired outfit, and I thought that we could have had something, you know, along those lines again, even though I understood that, like, they were in quarantine, so they wouldn't have any new clothes necessarily. I didn't think they needed to. I thought we could have had something cool. Regardless. Anyway, there were good costume moments in the season. I liked Dustin's look and how it sort of mimicked Eddie's without being, like, you could tell that Dustin didn't know how to put that outfit together in a really, like, coherent way. So he's just wearing items that Eddie would have worn, but none of them went together. Okay. Similarly, Holly's looks amazing. I loved the Holly the Heroic look. I loved seeing Alice Creel's clothes in that memory, and knowing how, like, a little girl from the 80s would treat it as like a princess dress. Like, it worked. And to be honest, I did really like the sort of vaguely 90s inspired clothes that existed in the epilogue. I liked that they were a little bit fresh for the characters. It felt like they were, like, embarking on a new journey. Please stop sniffing the camera. But 11 wasn't really part of that. Anyway, back to the beginning. In season 1, she wears Mike's clothes. She doesn't speak a lot, and it's very clear that she doesn't know what's going on, or she doesn't always, like, she doesn't have a strong sense of identity. One of the first things that she says when she gets into the Wheeler house in the living room is pretty, when she looks at Nancy's picture. And when I first watched that, I was kind of annoyed. I'm like, why is she, the girl character, focused on things being pretty? And I do think that the original series of Stranger Things over-focuses on the romance between Mike and Eleven, especially because they are so young. And it felt like they did pigeonhole Eleven often into a romantic interest rather than a really well-defined character. But now that I'm older and I have a slightly different view on things, I do understand that, like, gender sometimes is treated as a privilege rather than a right. Sorry, this is quite deep to be talking about with the dog on your lap. Wherein 11, with her hair being shaved and wearing the hospital gown, was denied a gender and was denied that key part of identity. And when she meets Mike, he just dresses her in her clothes and kind of treats her like one of the boys. And similarly, 11 is being mistaken for Will all across town, which is part of the, like, ongoing mystery. But, oh, all right. So when they put 11 in Nancy's old dress, and it's like this pretty pink dress with the Peter Pan collar, oh God. She looks at herself and she says pretty. It's kind of like a reclaiming of identity moment in a way. She's allowed to have pretty things, and she's allowed to, oh, please don't walk into the camera. Oof. She's allowed to express that part of her identity. And I thought it was nice because there was that scene where she, like, walked in Nancy's room and gazed around in fascination. It was like Nancy was maybe a version of what Elle could have been. Like, there were some parallels between Elle and Nancy, even though most of the parallels were between Elle and Mike and Elle and Will. Stranger Things did have this problem sometimes with femininity. My grandfather clock is going again during the Stranger Things video. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, it goes every hour. In other seasons of the show, Stranger Things sometimes had this problem with femininity where it didn't quite know how to portray it. And with Nancy, it was usually really, really good. Yes, thank you. Thank you. But with characters like Max, it sort of wasn't necessarily. When they first introduced Max, she was just kind of like, here's a girl that likes some of the interests that the boys have, and therefore they're going to glom onto her. and they dressed her in that season she wore very similar outfits. It was usually like a sweatshirt or a hoodie with jeans and a t-shirt, kind of like she brought them from California and she wasn't winter ready yet. He's rolling on the floor now. Hello. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm paying attention to you. I'm paying attention. Season 2 also had that annoying moment where Elle rebuffed Max, seemingly just for being a girl, or maybe like for being in her place. It was kind of like, this group can have more than one girl. Season 3 really did well for that by making Elle and Max friends. But anyway, they continued in season 2 to give Elle arcs where her identity was being shaped by other people, which is fine. She's really young and she's not been out in the world very long. So it's fair that her identity is shaped by her relationship with Hopper, her relationship with Mike, and her relationship with Carly. By season 3, we were starting to see something like kind of cool go on where she was learning how to be a person explicitly within the text. She doesn't know how to pick clothes for herself, so Max tells her how. Oh my god. And I loved her season 3 clothes. They were so cute. And I really liked how sort of age appropriate they were, because I felt that when they dressed her in the punk outfit with Carly, it was sort of, Carly was dressing her like Carly, but Carly, it was slightly too old. Which made sense because they were treating Elle kind of like an adult. But Max treated her as a fellow kid. And, you know, they had matching scrunchies and matching raincoats, and they did girl things like sleepovers and spin the bottle. But similarly, I like that they didn't overdo it. They didn't say Max is just completely feminine and forget other parts of the character in that. They gave her interests that were congruent with what we already knew about her, but were, like, now we didn't treat femininity as, like, a foreign concept, but it was part of her character just weaved in. Like, the thing I liked was the comics. Like, she liked comics and the boys liked comics, but she specifically had chosen Wonder Woman, you know, a female-focused comic. Now, season 4 began, and I understand where they were going with the plot, but it didn't help, like, adding up to a cohesive identity for 11. It wasn't like she was beginning to develop her own interests or her own sense of style. Her sense of style was kind of taken away. They gave her a haircut which made her look like Joyce, which was cute because she was now part of that family, but at the same time it sort of made her look not like her own person again. Her clothes were clearly hand-me-downs and none of them went together. It was like a regression. Her storyline involves being bullied at the high school in Lenora at the beginning, and then later when she sort of has all these lab flashbacks when she's in the Nina Project, she realized that she was bullied there too. But the sort of vibe is that she acts out in the beginning when she's bullied, and then thinks that maybe she acted out in the past when she was bullied, but I felt like when I was watching that, I knew that she hadn't killed all those children. It was deeply obvious to me. So I didn't know why they were wedded so much to this mystery and this like red herring of it all. I understand that the Vecna reveal was a big part of that season, but it felt like they played that can too hard too early. When I watch this back, there's going to be so much dog sound. I have no regrets about doing it like this. Where was I? I thought that the Elle and Mike storyline in season 4 was particularly weak. They have this whole arc where he can't say I love you to her. When he's already said I love you to her in season 3, she just wasn't in the room, and therefore I didn't think it was that big of a deal, especially because they're like 15. It felt like we were over-focusing on this romantic relationship instead of the coming of age. And I say this as someone who knows that romantic, like first romance is a key part of coming of age in a lot of stories. But it felt like we'd already tread that ground. We already knew that they loved each other. And now it felt like we needed to really express who 11 was outside of Mike. Oh, he just licked the camera. Okay, I had a brief interlude while I took the dogs out, and now I don't really remember what train of thought I was on. I remember my point though. which is that Stranger Things failed to give Eleven a decent coming-of-age arc because they often failed to instill her with a sense of personhood, which was initially purposeful but then dragged out to the point where she left the show having not gained any real personhood. At certain points, I thought that they were maybe on something by focusing on the idea of girlhood as a subset of childhood, that they were having Eleven seek personhood by learning how to be a girl and learning how to be a child, rather than learning how to be a weapon. I felt that in season 4 they focused too hard on the idea that she was a superhero, which is functionally another subset of weapon, and failed to give her any other kind of personhood. I like that she stood up to Papa in that season, but she kind of stood up to Papa by running away in the first place. In season 1, Hop gets into the lab and briefly finds Eleven's room, and later on he has to explain that he saw a child's room to Joyce, and she's like, "Why do you know it's a child's room?" He's like, "There was a stuffed animal, the size of the bed, and there was a drawing on the wall." And they know that it wasn't Will in that room because the drawing is no good. The drawing is terrible. And it's just, but it's also incredibly blank. Like, even bad child's drawings tend to show some sort of personality. Eleven's doesn't. There's a stick figure of her and Papa, and I think there's the cat on the table, which is a scene that we've already seen. And maybe there's a rainbow. But Eleven's artwork doesn't show any identity. And even in season 4, her artwork there, which is the model, the diorama she makes of Hop's cabin, doesn't particularly show any identity. I thought it was a resonant moment because the children were making fun of her for talking about her dead dad. But at the same time, I still felt like we were lacking in personhood for her. Like, she hadn't developed any real interests, and the interests that she did have were kind of shallow. It was like, we know she likes to watch TV. The sense that I got in season 2 that she was learning more language from TV, which made sense. But like, we know that her favorite food is Eggos and she eats a lot of junk food. But what else? Even with the other kids, I always thought that Lucas kind of got the short straw out of the main 4 boys in terms of characterization. But we know he has different interests from the other boys. We know that he's more athletic than them, and he likes basketball, and he's interested in being cool and being popular. Maybe he's like more socially aware than them. And we know that Will is more sensitive and likes art. We know that Mike is the DM. So he's the sort of creative figurehead, I guess, of the group. Who are you barking at? There's no one out there. With Dustin, we knew that he liked science in particular. I was, in my head, thought that Mike was more of a fantasy guy and Dustin was more of a science fiction guy, but that's more of a headcanon. We know that Dustin likes science. We know that he is the most analytical of all of the kids. We know that even Max likes skateboarding and arcade games and comic books. Out of all these things, we've never really hit on a thing for Elle to like. It's kind of as simple as that. And even the things that she does, are really small, like Eggos in Miami Vice, and they come from other people. And we just never had a moment where she, was interested in something. Just one thing. And I had hopes at some point that it might be some kind of music, because we have music affixed, associated with a lot of the other characters. Obviously, for Max it's Kate Bush, but even Hopper has his signature song. Mike has a signature song. He's always singing "I Can't Fight This Feeling" in season 3. And Will and Jonathan like The Clash. We even get a sense of what music Nancy likes from season 4, but we never really got anything for 11. They focused so hard on making her have influences from other people that it's past a certain point they failed to give her any kind of individual direction. Like, she never drove her identity for herself, and it was so disappointing because in season 3 it felt like that was the direction they were going in, because they were having Max say that she had to find something for herself that wasn't like Mike's or Hopper's or anything like that. But in season 4 it felt like they regressed, and everything that she had was from the Byers family, and they're barking again at truly nothing. Anyway, I think that's the biggest disappointment in Stranger Things. I can't even find myself that mad that she had a Lucy Gray ending. All the individual choices Elle made in the end were about Henry and about seeking revenge on Vecna, like defeating Vecna, rather than about her own self-fulfillment. And yeah, I couldn't find myself mad at the Lucy Gray ending because they built the military would have been such a big threat that they couldn't necessarily just do away with them. And I couldn't think of a world in which we would have a happy ending with Mike apart from the other Wheelers. I think that was part of the problem. They could have Mike and Elle run away together, but then he wouldn't be with his family. And, oh God. Hello, dog. That would be a sad ending in its own way. The other version of the ending would have seen them have Elle lose her powers, which you could have explained away, but also could have been quite sudden and maybe a little bit rushed. So I understand why they had her vanish like that, and I know that the cast have said different things, but I firmly believe that within the text of the show they are telling you that Eleven is alive. It doesn't make sense to me otherwise. So I believe it's less of a Lucy Gray ending than the actual Lucy Gray ending. And at the very least, she made the decision to leave on her own. But then she was by herself, and that was kind of sad. And at the same time, she was seeking out the 3 waterfalls, which was something that Mike had said. As it was, in season 5, I felt like we'd lost the arc in season 4. So I didn't think that that they would actually manage to give her a compelling coming-of-age arc in the last series, and wouldn't you know it, they didn't. They gave Holly a very compelling one-arc story, and I'm grateful to have had that, and I'm grateful to have had the epilogue in the D&D scene, because I thought it was very affecting. But overall, I find myself annoyed at the way they handled 11, more or less from the start.